my name is Tim. Really delighted to have partnered with Lee to come in and once again just have a bit of a conversation about AI. The last time I was here was February, which I think from an AI perspective seems like a long, long time ago. But when I was first here, one of the things that I had wanted to perhaps share was how it was that we don't have to ever fear AI. I know that one of the, I guess, constant reactions to this is fear of the unknown, or maybe feeling powerless or overwhelmed, or perhaps there is a lack of confidence. And so through these type of conversations, we can maybe demystify different aspects of AI. And even more importantly, just to see how it is that we can get involved with confidence to be able to navigate this uncertain time. It could be one of these very pivotal moments in human history. And so the goal for today is to see if you can make a difference in AI. So I'll just start off by maybe telling a little bit about what has happened in the space of AI in the last 6 months or so, but maybe even closer to 8 months since I last spoke to you. And then also let's dive into how some companies are thinking about implementing AI technology that goes beyond just pilot projects and what it may mean to integrate AI into daily operations. And then let's get really practical. You've all decided to come here today, spend your lunch hour leaning into this particular topic. So what can we actually do to start making a difference in the space of AI? So what's new? Well, thankfully, over the really short period of when ChatGPT first came out, there's been a lot of fascination about the tools that have been developed and who is using it. So there is this fairly well-known investment firm called A16Z. They do a lot of their investment into AI and technology startups. So they started compiling these reports that they will publish, I think, once every 3 months or so. This is their latest version, which is essentially like a top 50. Call it the billboard of AI applications. Based on user volume, what are the top tools that we see? And you might recognize some of the tools there, such as ChatGPT or Gemini. Who even remembers DeepSeek when it made the headlines and the waves in January of this year? But they're still doing quite well at number 3. And so this is just an abstract from that. Gives about 30 of the most popular tools that are being used right now. The ones that are in the rectangular squares, the red colored rectangles, those are ones that I typically use, whether on a daily basis or maybe on a weekly basis. As a subscriber to ChatGPT, I feel like I need to get the most of my $20 per month subscription. So I do use that on essentially a daily basis. I'm an assistant professor at Mount Royal University, and so sometimes I'll use Notebook LM to create these really wonderful audio summaries so I can bring that into the classroom, recognizing that different students have different ways that they can learn. And so maybe having some audio stimulation also helps with their learning. But I also use tools like 11 Labs, which is a voice cloning type of tool. And then Gamma is something that I've just encountered recently. Gamma, essentially, you can just give it a prompt, and it creates these wonderful, wonderful PowerPoint type presentation decks for you. Okay, so as you take a look at that particular chart, is there anything that sticks out to you that you use fairly regularly? And this is just kind of an informal survey to those that are in the room. Is there a tool that you use fairly frequently that's not even on this list?
Using Copilot.
You're using Copilot? Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up, because for a lot of people, especially in the corporate space, your main interaction with AI might be through your Microsoft tenant. So you are fortunate because there's a lot of people that are in organizations that have Microsoft, but they have not turned on Copilot. So the fact that your organization has turned it on and has allowed you to use it, that's wonderful. It means that now you're normalizing the use of AI tools. Great. Any other tools for anyone in the room that you use fairly regularly? Okay, so great. We see all the tools, but how are they actually being used? Now, back in February, I spent a lot of time talking about fakes and how we now really need to, kind of be on the lookout and be skeptical. Okay, well, we're in October of 2025 now, and it seems like this technology has infiltrated so many parts of our daily lives. So over the summer, there was a lot of buzz around this band called Velvet Sundown because they showed up on Spotify and they were getting a lot of plays. And as you know, for a audio streaming service, like that makes a big difference, right? For those that get more plays, they then rank higher in the algorithm. So before you know it, you open up your Spotify and it says, hey, you should listen to Velvet Sundown. But then it was discovered that 2 albums from this group created entirely by AI. And so you can imagine the reaction from the subscribers of Spotify to think, wow, they did not realize that what they were listening to was actually created by AI. Now, since then, Spotify, and I think this was back in June or July, they have revised some of their policies with respect to content having be clearly identified if it was produced by AI. But this is kind of the Wild West that we live in right now, where these tools are vastly available. People are becoming creative with these tools and creating these things that seem very, very realistic. Okay, summer was actually quite exciting from an AI tools perspective, especially in the space of video generation. And so we started hearing about all of these large companies like Google, even OpenAI, and some of these other independent companies releasing these video tools. And these video tools really allow you to just give it a prompt like you would to ChatGPT or to Copilot, and then it would create these videos. Now you can start watching a vlog of Bigfoot or of a stormtrooper that is created by some of these tools. Or you can go into OpenAI's latest video tool called Sora 2, like this person on the paddleboard. It's just a very simple prompt, but notice the physics, the lighting, the shadow, the continuity that happens in the creation of these video clips. The one with the Dalmatian running through obstacles and how even the little pylons, how they respond in a very physical sense. So it's no longer just a 5-second clip of a static person that is now a video. You have these kind of full motion with a lot of physical elements, a lot of physics that is involved. Okay, October 2025. You probably have already encountered a news article about Tilly Norwood, a completely AI actress. And even the studio that has created her, they're not apologetic about it at all. They're saying, hey, this is actually intentional. The idea is that, well, what if you could create an actor, actress that is so flexible that they can star in a fantasy movie, in a classic period movie, in a rom-com movie, and be engaging as you would with an in-person actor. So this is kind of where we're at right now. You can imagine the reactions. It wasn't that long ago that the union that represented all of Hollywood's actors and actresses were protesting about the incorporation of AI technology because they were worried about this, and now it's happening. Okay, so this is kind of the state that we're in right now in terms of where the AI technology. And I think I might have said this in February, but today, so October 8th, this is the worst state that this technology will be, which means that tomorrow, on the 9th, in November, it's going to be even better than what we see right now. Okay. And of course, lots of things have happened that you can see news snippets about. Where we hear, oh, Walmart's investing $1 billion to upskill all of its frontline workers into AI. So frontline meaning the person that greets you at Walmart, the person that helps you to check out using their self-checkout machines, even the person that is restocking the shelves. They are all going to be upskilled in AI. Their theory is that if their staff at all levels is more AI literate, then all of their staff can find more opportunities to either improve on processes or identify new revenue generating opportunities. So shortly after Walmart announced that, Volkswagen came out and announced $1 billion investing into AI. I think it's almost like monkey see, monkey do, right? If you have one company that comes out, and we see that a lot in oil and gas, right? Usually it takes just one large player, and then the rest will follow suit. So Volkswagen also investing $1 billion into AI. So we see a lot of themes around upskilling. And that's going to be also a prevalent theme in our discussion today about how it is that you can upskill yourself in AI. I think the other theme that we're seeing, and this is maybe not surprising, is, well, I'll call it human capital reduction, but I think we all know that as layoffs and work reductions. So Accenture cuts 11,000 jobs in its global AI restructuring. Shopify, so one of Canada's technology darlings, its CEO came out and said, look, you're not allowed to hire anyone new until you can prove that that person's role cannot be done through AI. And this is just a snippet. I could probably fill a lot more slides with news headlines. And you are probably hearing also rumblings and also indications of where there actually is impact AI. Now, as someone that works at a post-secondary institution at Mount Royal University, the impact that this is having on a particular age demographic is definitely of fascination to me. So CPA Canada just released its latest quarterly economic outlook, and it highlighted that those in the age range of 15 to 24 are having a more increased challenge in finding work. Even before today's session started, just had a chat with a few of you, and that came up, that it's really hard to find a job if you are a new graduate. And a lot of that is because, well, a lot of jobs that are typically meant for interns, co-ops, new grads, they're being automated away. They're using some of these tools. They no longer need a full-time customer service agent. You can now do that with a chatbot. So we're seeing real impacts of this on the workforce. Okay, so we did hear that 2025 was the year where a lot of these companies were starting to embrace AI technology. Now, Alan was just sharing with me that at some of the large energy companies across Canada, they're now starting to embrace AI. Perhaps in the organization that you're in, you may have already been involved in some of these AI initiatives or AI pilot projects. And so all around the world, we actually saw that this year there were a lot of pilot projects. So things that spun up so that you can try out different AI technologies and tools. But what ended up happening was the majority of these initiatives, so somewhere in the tune of 70 to 75%, ended up not proceeding. So there's a term for it called death at pilot project. You do the pilot project, but then nothing happens after that. And there's a few reasons for why this may have been the case. One, probably the biggest one is data quality. So for a lot of the AI tools, they need good data in order to do the thing that it was designed to do. And so if all of a sudden your organization's data is seen to not be of good quality, or you don't know where it is, or there's just a lot of issues with it, then it turns out that a lot of these pilot projects are spent just trying to clean or to locate the data. And so that has been one of the biggest causes for why these projects don't proceed. Now, the second is related to leadership fortitude. So, for a while, there's a lot of excitement about getting AI into organizations. And so you'd have these senior leaders that would champion some of these initiatives. They would secure the right amount of budget and the resources in order to ensure that the projects would proceed. But then, as it is in a lot of organizations, leaders move on or they retire. Those that were seconded to the projects, they're now returned back to the part of the organization where they came from. And so there isn't any follow through. So even if the initiative was successful in demonstrating the value creation of these tools, it turns out that unless you have already put in place the continuation of this initiative, a lot of these projects just end up getting shelved. Okay. So for a lot of these projects, when they spin up, you're just using operational expenditures or your OpEx. But what is needed is a commitment of CapEx. So the capital expenditure for organizations to say, yes, we're going to invest this money into making our organization better for the long term. So it does become an OpEx versus CapEx type of conversation. And probably the third reason why a lot of these initiatives have not progressed is there's still a lack of trust in the tools themselves. And there's also a lack of trust in the people with the tools. And so I was really delighted to hear that you already have access to Copilot. I would say you're probably in the minority right now, that for a lot of the organizations, even in downtown Calgary, that are Microsoft customers, not many of them have actually enabled Copilot for their entire enterprise. It's usually dedicated to maybe their IT department or a select group to kind of test it out before they roll it out any further. Okay. So what does that say to the employees? Well, it's saying, hey, we don't trust you with these tools. We want to vet it out. We want to quality control it, make sure that it's not going to do anything harmful before we give it to you. So that's kind of the message that it sends out. The other is just the overall lack of trust in the tool itself. And shortly, we're going to talk a little bit about this concept of slop. But we're starting to see also there's a little bit of where when people are using these tools, sometimes there's an over-reliance on the credibility of the tools or the output of the tools themselves. Okay, so if we think about it, these tools, particularly these are I would call them the generative AI subset of tools. Like when we actually talk about AI, it's quite a vast range of different types of technological approaches rooted in a lot of mathematics and statistics. So here we're just talking about generative AI, very small subset of the broader artificial intelligence. We know, and if you've ever used Copilot or Gemini or ChatGPT, it's good at these things. It can summarize things for you quite well, concision. It can make content for you very well. It can do coding very well, surprisingly. We've seen that as actually a very popular and growing use case in 2025. It's really good at customer care. So these chatbots actually provide good customer care. And it's actually good at companionship. This is where a lot of people actually use these tools in order to progress their mental health and mental well-being. Okay, so I think we all agree that these tools are good at that. And in the course of the last 6 months, people have gotten better at these tools. Okay, so people have tried it out, which is wonderful. They've become more comfortable with it. And now they're doing some really neat things with these particular tools. Okay, I've heard this before. If he wanted to, Elon Musk could cure world hunger. Okay, so when you hear a statement like that, really that's saying, irrespective of your opinion of Elon Musk as a person, you're indicating that this person has access to resources and capabilities to tackle really large, complex problems. If I were to say, well, I wanted to cure world hunger, I would run into challenges right away. I would not have the capability to do that. So then I would say, okay, well, maybe not world hunger. What if I were to tackle hunger in Ramsey? So that's the community that I live in here in Calgary. Or you might be thinking about, making a difference in some sort of issue within your community. So what I've done there is I've taken a look at the problem that I want to solve, and I've attacked it in a different way. So this idea of attackability. So for me, I know that I'm not capable of solving world hunger. It's too big of a problem. Maybe for someone like Elon Musk, who has the resources and capabilities, he could attack a problem of that size. For me, I might be able to attack the problem in Ramsey, so I can work with the community association. We can do some Christmas hampers or maybe bottle drives or food drives. So that's how I've taken the attackability down to a level that I know I can tackle with the resources and capabilities that I have. But what if AI could actually enable us with extended resources and capabilities? So using those tools that we just looked at, what if all of a sudden now you are capable of making a much bigger impact? Well, now your attackability has changed for that particular problem. So maybe now we could tackle world hunger if we're using these AI tools. So I would love for you to think about, well, what is one big problem that you've thought of before, but you already dismissed it? You're like, oh no, that's not for me. That's for someone like Elon Musk. But now if you have access to some of these tools that is able to extend your capability and your impact, does that all of a sudden change the way that you view about that particular problem? So great. So maybe we could actually use this AI technology for the betterment of society. But you know what's happening? We're actually using AI in different ways and not necessarily beneficial for society. So if you haven't heard of this term, slop, I'm going to introduce you to something called AI work slop. Okay, so slop is easy to create AI generated work that masquerades as good work, but lacks the substance to meaningfully advance a given task. The ease of generating content with AI has enabled people to submit low quality work. Okay. And when you hear that definition, some of you may already agree that you've already seen that the output, maybe by a colleague, even your own output, has demonstrated to you that, oh, well, maybe, I mean, it sounds convincing, but maybe it's not really substantive or high value output. Well, this is happening enough that they're already starting to do some studies on this, that it takes roughly 2 hours in order to correct for AI work slop. Okay, so once it's encountered, means that it could take someone 2 hours to kind of go through all of the outputs, check the references and the citations, and actually validate that what is being proposed actually makes sense. The other impact that this has is that it continues to erode the trust in the tools. Remember how we already said that one of the causes for why these pilot projects don't proceed is there's a lack of trust in the tools. Well, this is only going to perpetuate that lack of trust in the tools itself. And even worse, it's going to make this productivity crisis problem even bigger. And I don't know if you already knew that we were in a productivity crisis. You probably have heard of organizations like Suncor that have gone through digital transformations. Okay, so many organizations have gone through these digital transformations. And that's because all of them are facing a productivity crisis, which means that they're feeling compelled, their leadership is feeling compelled that the team that they have, the employees that they have, can produce more. They're just not doing enough. And so maybe if all of a sudden we digitize everything, we introduce a new ERP, that would increase productivity. Okay, so we've dealt with this productivity crisis for quite some time. What AI is going to do is only going to further amplify that crisis. Because now, well, you know what? You could create a lot of work to make it look like you are productive. But again, the slop nature of this type of work means that you're not really moving the needle on trying to solve whatever the problem is. So part of the crisis is that there is an incentivization issue. A lot of times, many organizations' incentivization structure is such that it's based on how much you do. Okay, just think about the role that you're in, or maybe the leadership that you have in your organization. How important is it that you demonstrate that you're actually doing something versus how important is it that you're actually solving a particular issue? And how is that rewarded in your organization? Okay, we're going to move into the practical part of this because, again, I think we could probably have some really awesome conversations about where AI is and whether it's having a positive impact or a negative impact in your particular work situation. But I want to anchor some of this practical approach with this idea of AI literacy. And just like when we think of literacy overall, we know the benefits to society, that when you have society that is more literate, it is able to access, process, and use the information that it can access to in a very meaningful way. When we're talking about AI literacy, why it matters is because it will increase efficiency. It will boost productivity and help us address this productivity crisis. And it will help highlight strategic advantages. We live in an ultra-competitive, hyper-competitive type of situation. And so any advantage that you can find and gain is going to be strategic in nature. Now, we're seeing this already in Calgary. These might represent some verticals or sectors that you're already involved in. Clean technology, AI models that are already predicting emissions and optimizing energy efficiency. Okay, so back to your example of Bruce Power adopting some of this. This is kind of a lot of that is leaning into clean technology. Agriculture, forestry, so use of smart sensors to forecast yields, detect health issues, monitor wildfire developments. So we're already seeing that happening, AI already affecting these industries. Health and life sciences, AI-assisted imaging. So, we're still at the stage where, when you need to go see your doctor, you show up, they have to pull your file, but it's still fairly generic. Like the first interaction with the doctor is still pretty generic. Well, wouldn't it be better if by the time you arrive to see your doctor, full prognosis has already been done and it's catered to your specific situation? Well, this is kind of what AI impacts in health and life sciences is doing, is creating some of these more customized, personalized medical interactions so it can get to the root of what it is that is maybe causing your ailment sooner. And it's not just about literacy. I think you'll recognize here that the reason why you're in your specific roles is you're all professionals. You have taken the ability to become literate in a certain domain, and now you've become fluent in it. You've achieved some sort of mastery. So for us to practically embrace AI, it's not just being literate in it, to know what are the tools and how might I be able to use it, but it is actually mastering some of these tools, these techniques, in order to then be able to, AI can be seen as a work engine. Okay, so just think of the engine that causes your car, or perhaps your scooter, or perhaps your bicycle. Okay, so AI is an engine and it powers specific tasks. Now, in the workplace, that would be whatever task it is that you are doing. Now, some tasks are very narrow and specialized. And so maybe some of you are in that situation where the tasks that you are managing are very narrow, but there's also other tasks that are very flexible and adaptive. So if you think of AI as an engine for your work tasks, okay, well, maybe you're using it for recruitment. Maybe you're using it for predictive maintenance. Maybe you're using it for marketing, or maybe you're using it for financial analysis. So these are all ways that your ability to be AI fluent drives this engine for what it is that you're doing, the tasks that you're doing in your organization. Okay, so let's get crunchy here. So here's the first thing that you can do in your current role. Data. Okay? So data fluency is also a term that has been kicked around for a while. In fact, probably a good precursor to where we are in AI right now has been this focus on big data, data analytics, and incorporating data science into your particular tasks. That hasn't gone away because if you think about it, all of these AI algorithms, they rely on data. So knowing where your organization's data is, knowing how to govern the data, so making sure that we retain our data for just a certain period of time, or how we capture the data. Do we have our date in the right format consistently? How do we deal with data that has some sensitive nature to it? Okay, so that importance hasn't gone away. So being data fluent in your organization is one of those ways that then you can start creating some sort of structure, foundation for you to become one of those AI work engines. Who here has a doorbell camera at home? Okay, so very informal survey here in the room would say roughly 20%. Okay. Recently, these manufacturers of these doorbell cameras have come up with programs where they will pay you to upload footage from your camera. Okay, ideally of maybe someone stealing a package off your front porch. But as part of this program, you could dress up as a thief, pretend to steal a package, have your doorbell camera record that, and you can upload that and they'll pay you for that. So I don't know, for those in the room, why do you think these doorbell camera companies would do something so fanatical? Okay, so that the camera or maybe the technology behind the camera can learn better what is an actual incident and then alert that more effectively to the owner. Okay.
Someone online in the chat just said, probably quite correctly, so they can sell more cameras.
So they can sell more cameras. So it could be part of some viral marketing stunt. Hey, look at this person getting caught in the act, right? But I really like your response there. It is about getting more data to train these algorithms. Because what's the business proposition for these companies? Hey, we know when someone is stealing something off your porch, and we know that with 100% accuracy. But the only way that you can achieve that accuracy is if you've got the data. Now, where do you find data of people stealing stuff, right? Like, it's not like there's a public database somewhere of all of these thefts, right? A lot of times it's as it has happened, or in this case, let's make it happen. Okay, so this is kind of indicating to us, and this is just one very small example. In fact, there are social media apps now that will pay you to record your end of the phone conversation. And if you upload it, you can make like $30 a day. So it's telling us that these companies are running out of data. Like, they've already trained their algorithms as much as they can, but it's not enough. And so now they're having to come up with creative ways of getting more data. And so if you are comfortable with your organization's data, you know how it is stored, how it's governed, the retention period of it, what the data even means. That's oftentimes the biggest challenge, is what does this data even mean? Okay, then all of a sudden now you have made yourself very relevant in an AI workspace. Okay. So the second is this, critical thinking. Okay, so I think we've heard this almost to the point of cliche. Yes, we need to be critical thinkers. That's probably one of the most important enabling skills for anyone coming out of university. You need to be a critical thinker. This will continue and even be more so such an important skill set in the age of AI. Because as we've seen with the slop that gets created, AI outputs can look very authoritative. And if you're not in the know, you might go, okay, yeah, it sounds very believable, and I might accept that. But then you know that this drives misinformation, disinformation, hallucinations. Okay, so Vincent was just sharing how he's playing around with Copilot, and somehow it had access to information, but it was kind of taking a little bit from here, a little bit from here, a little bit from here, putting it together to make it sound like a very authoritative sounding thesis. And if he wasn't the original creator of that information, someone else might go, hey, that's kind of cool. Okay, if you don't believe me, here's a couple of examples. Newfoundland, the education board, they commissioned a 10-year report, an action plan. Oh, it makes sense, right? You're charged with coming up with the roadmap for how it is that students in Newfoundland should learn. Well, it turns out that their report contained hallucinations. Okay? This is a government-issued report that had these particular issues. I don't know what's wrong with Canva. I tried 3 times to grab the headline that read this: Deloitte to refund Australian government for reports with apparent AI-generated errors. And I don't know if maybe Deloitte has some sort of thing that is preventing me from uploading the actual article, but this has also happened to Deloitte. Okay, so obviously embarrassment to them for being one of the world's largest management consulting firms and I'm sure that contract with the Australian government was not cheap, to have been discovered afterwards that a number of their citations were fake. So again, all to say, this skill of critical thinking is even more important than ever. Okay. Third thing you can do is responsible AI. So responsible AI is essentially the ethical way of how it is that you would implement AI tools and AI practices in your organization. It is something that, if not properly stewarded, will erode trust with your organization. It affects talent retention. Obviously, there are compliance issues if that's not properly managed, and you end up losing your competitive advantage. So when you see that list of potential risks of not having appropriate ethical or responsible AI in your organization, I'm hoping that your leaders or the board of directors for your companies will sit up and listen, because all of these risks that I've just identified, I mean, these are huge risks that those at the top of governance usually have to deal with. So maybe in your organization, you've already started down the road of implementing some sort of ethical or responsible framework. It may look in the way of governance, but there are already frameworks that can be adopted so that when it comes time to implementing AI in your organization, you know that you are doing it in a responsible way. Frameworks that talk about, well, how does this align to your purpose and your values? The tools that you're using, are they transparent? Are they explainable? How have you dealt with bias and fairness and equity in the data sets that they're being trained on? What is the level of accountability and oversight? Okay, how does this affect environmental impact? So there are some fairly mature frameworks already out there. It's just now a matter of these organizations needing to incorporate some of these frameworks into how it is that they would implement AI. So you could be a forerunner in shaping responsible AI, even creating some sort of ethical AI culture within the organization, just even having conversations with your colleagues about how it is that your organization can use AI in an ethical way. And you'll find that in doing so, even by creating like a community of practice or a culture like that, that's going to do wonders for advancing your own AI fluency. Okay, the fourth thing you can do is just, hey, first recognize that we're moving to a future workforce. So AI isn't just changing how the work gets done. It is in the process now of redefining what and how these organizations are being organized. So the future workforce will be one that values a lot of adaptivity. I know that there are a lot of organizations that have very strong governance in place and are really good at managing their risks. That can sometimes go counter to the agility or the adaptability that is needed in order to take on some of these innovative approaches. So there's going to be a little bit of wrestling on that. But probably the biggest change or challenge that organizations and the existing org structures may deal with is at some point, managers will be managing a team of flesh-bearing humans alongside GPU-bearing workers. So what might that look like? Many human resource management practices and courses don't really address that. So what does it look like in order to manage a team of AI agents? And what does that do for the overall corporate culture for the organization that you're in? So some of it is just starting small. So maybe recognizing that there are opportunities for automation. So again, this is one of the most gentlest and easy ways to get into this movement into a future workforce. Just find things that are typically routine in your particular department or in your group and just start automating that. Okay, there's lots of ways that can be done, even with the tools that you have right now. And then it's starting to shift the mindset that's within how it is that an organization gets managed. So being a lot more sensitive to where there are strategic opportunities, and also how it is that you can repurpose the existing workforce so that it's not always a conversation of how it is that we reduce the workforce, but how can we repurpose existing capability, free them up from the mundane of doing tedious and repetitive tasks so that these very capable and very talented people can then tackle some of these more complex problems that are there. Okay, so to stand out, so in order to thrive in this future workforce, you need both domain expertise and AI literacy. Okay, a couple of engineers that are in the room. I'm an accountant. These are all domains that still need expertise in those domains. But now you're just augmenting that domain expertise with some of these tools. Okay, so when we first started here, said, hey, the key thing is to dispel some of the fear. Maybe make this topic a little less overwhelming. Empower you so you feel more confidence to be able to tackle this. And I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you have as well too, and that it will achieve this. And now you have 4 call to actions or 4 specific things that you can do in order to empower yourself, in order to grow yourself, so that when we are in a place where AI technology is disrupting all around us, you can be one of those that are thriving. So again, build up your data fluency, build critical thinking, and keep practicing critical thinking, especially as AI work slop shows up more and more in the workplace. Be a leader in responsible AI. Have that grounded ethical mindset and start building that culture within your organization. And stand out now for the future workforce. Think about what it takes to maintain your domain expertise or build on your domain expertise, but how it is that you can incorporate some of these AI tools into your practice. Okay, so thank you for, again, spending the time with us both here in person at Stephen Avenue Place and for you that are online. This has been a very fascinating time. We continue to be in a very fascinating time. Please connect with me because there's nothing in my professional background that says I'm at all qualified to talk about this. I'm just innately very curious, and I love being able to hear from others as well too, their perspectives, their discourses, because I think the only way that we'll be able to navigate this is to do it together. Okay, so thanks everyone.